Good afternoon, everyone. I am Pastor Keith Hackle Jr., and I have the privilege of moderating the discussion that we are going to have today. I hope that you had a wonderful Sabbath service. I hope that you went and got you something to eat. I hope that you even took a nap, a brief nap, and I hope that you're awake and ready to have this all-important conversation that we are going to have today. Dr. Johnson did a great job of leading out last night, delivering a word, a powerful word. Today, we're going to have a discussion. And then tomorrow, this thing is going to continue. There's going to be breakout sessions tomorrow. You can register for the breakout sessions at the Central States website, central-states.org. As soon as you go to that site, you will find the information that you need. Even if you go to YouTube, you'll be able to watch that message last night if you missed it. It is an amazing presentation, and we're going to have an amazing time today. I want to invite our panelists on. We got a good group of individuals who are with us today, from Elder Roger Bernard, and all of these individuals will tell us a little bit about themselves in just a second. Got Elder Roger Bernard, we got Gary Graham, we got Karsten Rogers, we got Donna Kelly, and we have Dr. Denise Johnson, all going to be a part of the panel today. But before we get into the introduction of the panelists, I want to ask you to bow your head with me where you are as we prepare for this program with a word of prayer. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I just thank you so much, first of all, for your inspiration, for your direction, to all of the individuals who are involved in this weekend to have this discussion, Lord. I thank you for each of the panelists who were able to move things out of their way as it relates to their schedule to come and to be a part and to lend some words of advice and encouragement to this all-important topic. The reality is abuse happens in our lives, whether it's in our families, whether it's in our community, whether it's in our churches. It happens, Lord. I know that when it hurts us, it hurts you as well. And so today, Lord, we just want to be empowered. We just want to be encouraged. We want to be informed so that we know what to do when this ugly situation attacks our families, attacks our churches, attacks our communities. So, Lord, speak through each of the panelists tonight. Be with the eyes and the ears and even the minds of each individual who's watching. May someone leave here freed from the bondage of what may have happened to them in the past. May someone leave here empowered and encouraged to protect their young people, to protect the family members, Lord, to make sure that we are safe. May we all leave here closer to you than we were before we arrived. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. And amen. Again, I am Pastor Keith Jr., but I want to give opportunity for each of our panelists to introduce themselves. On my screen, my first person is Dr. Johnson, then Elder Bernard, and so we'll go that way. If you could do your brief introductions, please.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you, Pastor Hackle. I am Dr. Denise Johnson. I'm a board-certified pediatrician in St. Louis. I also have the pleasure of serving as our conference's Family Ministries co-director. I'm happy to be able to be on the panel this afternoon.
Hello, everyone. My name is Roger Bernard. I have the privilege of serving as the president of the Central States Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, covering 9 states in Mid-America. I have 30 years in pastoral ministry, and many of those years were utilized in ministry directly to young people. So I really have a passion and a heart for the young.
Good afternoon. My name is Donna Kelly. I am a certified peer counselor, and I'm coming to you from Cusick, Washington this afternoon.
Good afternoon from sunny New York City, home of the Brooklyn Dodgers. Originally, my name is Gary Graham, future Dr. Graham. And if the name Graham sound familiar, those twin boys who are running around the country, preaching all around them, I taught them. I'm their older brother. And I want to thank Dr. Johnson for having me here. I'm going to keep it real for you. Mental health is real, and I'm here to lift you up in Jesus' name. Let's do this.
Good afternoon. My name is Karsten Rogers. I have the privilege of serving as the youth director here in the Central States Conference. I also serve as the pastor of the Cornerstone Seventh-day Adventist Church in Atchison, Kansas, and the Emmanuel Seventh-day Adventist Church in St. Joseph, Missouri. And I have a passionate heart for our young people. I want to see them educated in this area, as well as be able to get healing for some who may be in need. So I'm grateful to be here, and thank you for this opportunity.
Oh my goodness. I feel like my church member is probably about to text me in just a second. Like, you didn't say nothing about us. I also have the privilege of pastoring the Agape Seventh-day Adventist Church here in St. Louis and serving as the Adventist Community Services Director for the Central States Conference. And so I'm excited to be here. We're going to get into it. But before we get into it, I want to let you all know, those of you who are watching, you have the possibility, the opportunity to participate as well. I'm going to give you my phone number right now. It's actually on the screen, 513-238-6257. Any questions that you have, anything that you want to add to the conversation, we want to give you the ability to do that. I have a list of questions that I'm going to ask the panelists, but we want to also have your participation. We want to answer your direct questions. So again, 513-238-6257. We're asking you to send in any questions that you may have, that I may pose them to the panelists, and that we may be able to have those questions answered for you. And so we'll go to our first question, and anyone can answer, just because there may be many people who answer. I ask you to keep your answers brief and straight to the point. But our first question that we have for today, as it relates to the potential for abuse, the dangers of individuals around us. Here's our first question. We often hear stories about sexual assaults that happened in the past, and the victim is told to get over it and move on. Is this good counsel?
I'd like to speak to that. No, it's not good counsel. In fact, some of the listeners that are listening today might find that just this conversation brings up negative emotions and they feel distressed. I do want to let you know that we do have a hotline number, that if you are experiencing any acute emotional distress by just the conversation of what is happening today, there is a number that you can call, 913-371-1071. Your information will be taken, and you will be that information will be given to a therapist who will give you a call back today, because we don't want anyone to be in emotional distress. But in answer direct to your question, no, it's not good counsel, because we don't burying things. You know, if I bury a seed, I started a garden this year. I planted my seeds are popping up. If we bury things and we don't deal with them, we don't kill them, we don't take care of them, they will pop up.
Okay. Anybody else? It's happened in the past. Just get over it.
Yeah, I'd like to chime in as well. Absolutely. It's important for them to talk about it, get the help that they're needing. We know that things that are left undealt with comes back more infected, and it manifests itself in other ways. And so Dr. Johnson gave a wonderful message on yesterday, and we saw how with the beautiful Tamar, when she was raped, how she never got past that. And so it's very important, if a person feels like if a person has been abused, that do not listen to anyone who's saying, just get over it, don't talk about it. No, in order for you to be healed, in order for you to be healthy, you got to get help, tell people about it, and get pointed in the right direction.
That's good. Got room for one more if somebody else wants to chime in on that one before we go to the next one.
Yeah, the most important thing, I think, what Dr. Bernard said and Dr. Johnson said, is tell people about it. We have to undo the culture of silence. Silence is acceptance. You see, when the president says that silence make those bad seeds grow. Talk about it to anybody. And if you hear anybody, we got the reverse bullying effect. So if you hear anybody says, sweep it under the rug, it's not important, we need to check those people to undo the culture of not speaking about it.
And now, so that brings us to a very good point. I appreciate all those points. That brings us to my next question, because as it relates to children and children being abused, right? We say stranger dangers, and so what we're saying is watch out for those individuals that you don't know. But statistics show that the number of children that are being abused is not by strangers, but actually in many cases by individuals that they know. So how do we teach them safety without destroying their trust in people? It can be easy to say, all right, everybody's a target now. How do we teach them safety without destroying their trust in people?
Yeah, I'll jump right. Go ahead. No, go ahead. After you.
Okay. I'd like to jump in on that one, if I may. The most important thing is that children are born with an innate sense of what is right and what's wrong and who they want to be in contact with. The main thing is to respect our children's boundaries from a very early age. Stop making them give that stranger a hug, or even if it's someone that they know. Stop forcing them to speak or to, and I know people think, well, that's rude for your child not to address people. But we need to teach our children respect, the difference between respect, but they also have personal boundaries. Stop making your children give those hugs to people that they don't want to give hugs to. Teach them personal boundaries. It's okay to say no.
Okay. Elder Bernard.
Yes, this is near and dear to my heart because I have girls, and I particularly have a young girl, a young daughter, a 9-year-old as well. And so my wife and I do our best to teach her about touch zones, as we teach her about her body, where she should be touched, where she shouldn't be touched, and that's by anybody. We teach her to respect the fact that she feels uncomfortable with the way somebody may be treating her. We just had this conversation with her, I think it was yesterday as well. Also we try to put things in place, like if someone shows up to her school, someone who she knows, and they say, your mom and dad sent me to pick you up. We've taught her not to go. There's a special word that we've given her. And if that individual doesn't say that special word, then she doesn't go with them. So we talk about it with them. We talk about, it being, we talk about it from a stranger's perspective, but we also talk about it from people and we talk about her trust in herself. If she feels uncomfortable, if people touching in her no touch zones and all those things, get to use her voice, scream, yell, kick, punch, run. All of those things we teach her that's acceptable. So we have ongoing conversations with our girls to keep them safe.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Anybody else want to chime in on that one before we move to it? You all are making some great points that help me now. I got some other questions but anybody else want to kind of chime in on that one?
I think what's important also is we need to watch out for people who like to drop names. So as an adult, if I was coming to the Central States Conference and I would go to your president and say, I know this person, I know this person, I know this person. I went to school with this person, I went to school with this person, I went to school with this person. And we play this 6 degrees of separation. So the predator does the same thing. When I was a young boy at 7 years old, a lady came up to me on the street and asked me for my dear grandmother's address. And she named everybody, and I trusted her. 2 hours later, she goes to my grandmother's house and curses her out. And I just cry my eyes out. She said, you're so smart or what have you. Now, if she would have damaged my grandmother or hurt my grandmother, now I'm in my 50s. This happened to me when I was 7. This happened to me when I was 7. So along with the touch zones and the names or what have you, we kind of have to teach our kids to be savvy to say that, you don't know everybody. And my mother and father told me not to say anything as I do not know you. I never seen you and I never heard from you. You're not Auntie so-and-so. You're not Auntie Doc Johnson. You're not Auntie Keith, Uncle Keith. I'm sorry, Keith, from the Agape Church. I do not know you. So we have to keep on stressing that. Again, the violator goes through a name dropping system before anything happened to gain a trust within that 30 to 1 minute area.
Good stuff. So I'm hearing something, and I hope that the individuals viewing are hearing this. Over and over again, we keep hearing the importance of communication, and that communication, that pre-planning, that having those tough conversations before something goes wrong. A lot of times we can be very reactive, but I hope that you hear the encouragement to be proactive and have those tough conversations before your child goes out, before your child gets into a tough situation. I appreciate this. Now, as it relates to communication, there's good communication, there's bad communication. There are facts, and then there are lies, and then there are some things that sound true but are really false. And I really want to hear your perspective on this. There is a saying or a belief, right? Because I heard Elder Bernard say he has daughters, right? And so it makes sense to want to protect your daughters. There's a belief that males cannot, that our young boys are not at risk of being molested or being abused. Is that true? Or is that something that we need to make sure that we talk about as well?
I would say that that's definitely false. Our young men, our young boys are definitely targets as well, or can become targets. And so we have to be vigilant for both genders and be protective for both. Sometimes as young men, we're kind of taught and told, don't say anything, don't show your emotions. And so because of that, it kind of creates already a sense of I have to keep everything silent and internalized. And so I think for us as adults, we have to be mindful that certainly our young boys can definitely be targets as well.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Yes.
As it relates to young boys?
I think that one of the things we need to realize is that generally we think of the sexual predator as being a male, but that's not true. Many of our boys can be victimized by women as well. That there could be an older sibling or older relative. It could be the church sister. And a lot of times we don't think that that is molestation, that that's victimization. But we need to teach our boys not only to be cautious about other men, but also being cautious about other women.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Talking about our young boys. I'm hearing a running thing. We need to make sure we're talking to our young boys as well. I know that sometimes individuals, and Dr. Johnson, you just mentioned something that the one that has been abused may not believe that it's abuse. And so are there, for my individuals who are on that specialize in prevention or dealing with parents or just dealing with young people, is there a way for me to know that this situation that I'm in is abuse? Are there telltale signs, something that I should be concerned about? I'm gonna go to the church next and bring it into the church. But for right now, just for anyone, is there a way for me to know that I'm in an abusive situation? Or even as a parent or a guardian, is there a way for me to tell that my child may be, or someone in my family may be in an abusive situation?
So I think what you've done is you definitely have asked a loaded question, at least from my point of view, because there is a way to know. But of course, this goes back to how bonded the child is inside of the family, inside the community. So our children, first of all, have to be very bonded. We have to know our children in order to know what those telltale signs are. I'm sure that Dr. Johnson can tell you there are physical signs such as urination beyond a child's age, where they're supposed to be wetting or urinating on themselves or defecating on themselves. There's definite signs that can tell. It could be eating habits change, sleeping habits change. They become very irritated, agitated, situations and around people that they weren't before. But all of this has to come with knowing our children. So there's a foundation that has to be laid before we're able to really, and I want to talk about this more tomorrow. Children have to be bonded inside of that family home in order for us to know our children. And of course, to know what the telltale signs are. I want to say, first of all, or second of all, that it was Tyler Perry who was one of the first men to come out and say that he had been molested. And then, of course, there was a lot of backlash, then it's not possible to molest a man. It's not possible because physical consent, we have to understand this, it's not emotional consent. So we need to be sure that we understand that it's the same as a woman who's been violated. We need to give that same space to the male counterparts as well.
Gotcha. Anybody else signs that we should look out for to know that an individual may be going through in an abusive relationship? Anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, I'd like to chime in as well. I think it's very important also when people are trying to isolate you and cut off all of your relationship with your family, your relationship with your friends. You're never alone, looking disheveled, a bowing of the head all the time when you come around a lot of people. I think those are also some signs. I know in my years of ministry, I've seen cases where individuals try to isolate, and they were beating and sexually assaulting and doing other things to individuals like that. So I think all those are telltale signs.
Gotcha.
Another one, Doc, is what people don't know. You should get involved on what your kids, especially boys, watch on TV and how they react to certain things on TV. I'll give you two cases in point real quick. If your kids play Fortnite, or they play Roadblocks, or they play these games that's on Nintendo Switch or Twitch or what have you, you need to hear the conversation that they're having with the person on the other side. And the other thing is, if your kid loves football and all of a sudden he's talking about he wants to play tennis by himself, and Mr. Graham has been talking to me about tennis, you need to probe those things. You're the one that here's your kids. You're the hear that talks all the time. And when shifts in conversations or shifts in interest happens, you have to look at the portals that is coming through. And I'm going to swing back and I'm going to talk about this tomorrow. We also have to find out, it's not only in Sabbath school, it's not only in church, but what are your kids listening to when they play their video games? Because they talk to people around the world.
That's good. That's good. I'm getting messages in. I want to let you all know, if you're late tuning in, you can text me any questions that you may have. I have a list of questions that I'm gonna ask, but we want to ask your questions as well. My number 513-238-6257. So, and I want to say this before, if I could just add, I'm not a panelist, but if I could just add this to any of my young people who may be on the line, or my older young people. If you're in a relationship with someone and what they're asking you to do is frequently prefaced with, "If you love me, then," be concerned. Be concerned. If they're asking you to do things that initially you don't feel comfortable with, and then they're replying with "If you love me, then," if there's some piece of manipulation that is attached to this conversation and what they're asking you to, that you need be concerned. You need be concerned. There's a question as it relates to the church. Let's bring it into the church. I said we were coming here. We couldn't go through a conversation like this without talking about the church. So abuse. There's been a lot of reports on the news. There's been a lot of reports on social media about abuse in the church. And so there is a known predator, sexual predator, who is desiring to come to church. What do we do as a church?
Well, you looking at me, I can see. Yeah, that's a very important question that we do have policies for, Pastor. And so the first thing is our job is to make sure that the church, that the people are protected, but also that the individual who has had that fall is protected as well. And so when we know, if you know that someone is coming who has that kind of a past, you need to be in contact with our office right away, because then there are protocols that we put in place. Number one, that individual will have if it's a male, they will have probably a deacon that's assigned to them. If it's a female, That individual will probably have a deaconess or another lady that will be assigned to them. And their job would be to just be with that individual. If that individual goes to the restroom for their safety and for other people's safety, you don't want anybody saying things that may not be true. They just kind of get the eye of the person who's assigned to them. That person goes with them, just to kind of stand there while they're using the restroom and what have you. Then they come back. They have to be escorted through the building and what have you. Now, some people will say, well, that's not forgiving a person or letting a person get past what they've done in their past. Unfortunately, we live in a world where we have to put things in place to be overly cautious and precautious as opposed to underly, because God forbid an accusation is made, then that person's life is impacted. Also, the person who makes the accusation, their life is impacted. And so we sit down, we have meetings with the individual, we kind of let them know, here's what has to happen. Here's the group of you can't work with this group of people, you can't work with kids, and so on and so forth. We have them sign agreeing that they're going to abide by all of the things that we put in place. And again, it's for their protection, and it's also for the protection of the members as well. We try to be as sensitive as we can, yet use as much precaution as we possibly can. So it's important that we know that there are individuals. If you have those kinds of backgrounds, just know right up front, you can't work with our Pathfinders. You can't work on the AY team. There are things that you just can't do. Not that God doesn't forgive, not that God doesn't give you an opportunity to change and be better, but we're going to protect you, but we're also going to err on the side of protecting our kids. And then I lastly want to say, we live in a world where people will straight up sue you. There was a time when they wouldn't touch the church, but it's not so today. And so we're going to be very cautious. We don't want to be hurtful to anybody, but if we have to err, we're going to err on the side of safety.
Can I?
I was going to ask you, because you're a pastor. You feel,
and
what you gonna do?
Well, first off, I'm going to follow the policies as outlined by Elder Bernard. That's a starting place. I also want to say that as a pastor, all church board members need to go through a background clearance, a background screening. That's critically important, especially for all people working with children, all people working with youth, and for all church board members as a whole. And that is not a charge to the individuals. That's something that's provided through the conference, but that's critical. I was just having a conversation with a colleague who was saying that he had somebody who, was saying that they wanted to work with the youth, but they just would not fill out or complete the background screening process. It takes maybe an hour or so to do it. I mean, it's not a lot, but they just wouldn't do it. And then come to find out they did have a past that had to be dealt with. And so that's a critically important step for us to be aware of as church leaders, and making sure that we have those lines of communication, not just within our church, but the next thing I was going to say is that we need to also build relationships with our police departments, because sometimes you'll have people who come in, you may not know everything about everybody, but if you have relationships in the community, you have relationships with the police, so they can sometimes help you to understand who it is that you are reaching, and so that you can most effectively minister to that demographic.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Pastor, I do also want to chime in as well, because, you may not be on a registry. You may not have been caught.
True.
But you're still a predator.
True.
You prey on the single women. Now they don't have to be underage. They could be of age, but that they're vulnerable and what have you. You could prey on them. You could prey on the men. They don't have to be underage. They could just be vulnerable. And so as pastors, we keep our eyes open as well. We don't ever say, "Oh, that's nothing." You know, if our spidey senses go off, we investigate.
Yeah.
You know, there have been times when you've had to say to people, listen, you're married, that person is not your spouse, and that it doesn't look right. You're all kind of too cozy. And so we have a responsibility, if we love our people, to in a loving manner lead and direct them. We don't pretend like we don't see. If we think something's going on, we say, now we're not investigators, but we definitely will get involved and say, hey, listen, that didn't look, I was uncomfortable with what I saw. Here's what I saw. You put people on notice, those kind of things. So we have to be mindful of those who may have a record.
Yeah.
But then there are some people who may not have a record, but they don't mean any good to the church as well.
Absolutely right. I tell
Can
all
I
of the ladies,
chime in here?
I'm gonna come to you real quick. I tell all the ladies at my church, I'm gonna come to you real quick, Sister Kelly. I tell all the ladies in my church, and I should probably do this with the men as well, but definitely my ladies, I tell them, if you dating, I want to meet that brother first. So to Elder Bernard's point, just to let them, and this is important, and I say that not to be nosy, but I want whatever guy is involved with the membership to understand that this individual is a part of a family who's concerned about their welfare. Want to go to Sister Kelly real quick, and then I got a question from online that I definitely want to ask. Go ahead, Sister Kelly.
Thank you. You know, I do agree with the remarks that have been previously made. However, I want to point out something very important. It's not just board members and those that are in charge of the church, it's everybody. Mm-hmm. Anyone who is working in that church in any capacity, whether it's volunteer, whatever it is, I don't care, from the songstress to the pianist to the organist. If you're putting them up front in your organization, inside of your church, you're telling people that this person is okay, that this person is safe. And in reality, we don't know that unless a background check has been done. And then we also have very clear counsel. We should never have our children alone with an adult, ever. It should always be in twos, and we know this. If someone is taking a child to the bathroom, it needs to be in pairs. We never send a volunteer, a church worker, again, for their safety and the safety of the child, alone to the bathroom with one volunteer. You send a group of them together. You have two eyes on that situation at all given times. So we do have very clear counsel that it should always be in pairs of two.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm gonna go to Pastor Rogers really quick, and then we're gonna go to the online question.
Yeah, what I was gonna say was similar to what Sister Kelly just said, which is that at all times we need to make sure we're creating systems of accountability to be able to minimize risk, to be able to make sure that as much as possible people are protected. So even when dealing with young people, as much as possible, I try to make sure that the parents are involved in the process, that they understand exactly what's going on, that the communication is happening with them, so that there's never a time where someone is uncomfortable and they're feeling like there's an isolation happening, where there's too much one-on-one happening, where I'm now in a situation with just me and a young female, or even just me and a young man. Like, we want to make sure that we always have multiple people and do the best we can to create those systems of accountability. It's critically important in order to have that prevention.
All right, thank you so much. So here's the thing. This next, I appreciate the conversation. We're gonna keep going higher and higher. I want to let you all know you can send in your questions, and we want to let you know that if something that is being said right now or has been said is triggering experiences from the past, there are individuals who are available to receive your call, to conversate with you. There are therapists that are there for you. Just dial the number that is on the screen right now. But here's the thing. We talked about the fact that things happen and oftentimes people are just told to forget it, right? There's this slogan in many houses that what happens in this house stays in this house. That has been largely the slogan in our community, a community in which we're finding more often than not, we don't go and get the counseling help that we need. And so we're carrying burdens for a long time. So how can we rewrite that slogan as a community so that we can have healthy members of the community? I'm gonna just say this. I've gotten messages in from an individual who said, the church failed me. When I went through an abuse situation, I was looked at and told that it was because I was being too fast and because I was made to be the bad person. How do we rewrite that slogan that says, you know what? We need to talk about this. You know what? We need to bring everybody to the table. It may be awkward. How do we get beyond just saying it happened, let's keep it a secret, and get to a point where we can actually talk about this thing?
Yeah, Pastor, go ahead, Dr. Johnson.
Well, I'd like to chime in with this one. A lot of times we, especially as females, you might have a young woman who might be, she might be voluptuous. She might even be dressing inappropriately, but that still does not give anyone the right to sexually violate her. Or, if you're having an adult dealing with a child or an older adult dealing with a younger individual, that's not okay. That's not their fault, because the reality of it is the adult person is the person who has to be responsible. So, and I've heard that story too. A young lady was, quote, fast, and an older person approached them inappropriately, and they said, well, it's your fault because you were walking around here fast. No, we have to put the responsibility where the responsibility is. An adult is the responsible party in a relation. I don't care how much that person might be fast or might be dressing inappropriately. We can stop making the victim the perpetrator, right, rather than the perpetrator the perpetrator.
Yeah.
Elder Bernard. First of all, I want to apologize to the young lady who feels like the church failed her. In many cases, the church has failed people. So I apologize. And I pray that you have gotten the help that you need and that you are, in a much better space. With that stated as well, I want to just kind of let everybody know that our pastors are mandated reporters. This is not what happens in your house, stay in your house, that kind of thing. If you come to us and you disclose something to us, we tell you, first of all, there are certain things that we have to report. We're not going to say an individual is guilty. We're not going to say that they did what is going to be told to us. We're not passing judgment, but we are mandated to report it. And then we let the system do all of their investigation and what have you. But it's our job to make sure that we're letting the proper authorities know that we have this allegation that came to us. So if we know that someone has gone through something, you've disclosed that to us. And what I'm saying is, come to us. If you feel like you're scared because you're in your home, or you're scared somewhere, somebody told you they're going to hurt you or hurt your family, or they told you what has happened here, get to one of our pastors and say, I'm dealing with abuse. And the pastor will report it, and it will be investigated. And once we report it, it is now up to the authorities to do all of their searching, all of their interviews, so on and so forth. But we are not keeping anything secret, I think is what I'm saying to you. We are more concerned about making sure that our people are safe, that our people are protected. We're not going to try to pass judgment, but we're going to tell it. Gone are the days where we're going to turn a blind eye or just move somebody to another conference or anything of that nature. Those days are gone. And so,
like you read my notes. It's like you read my notes. You know what's coming. No, and even some of the, I'm gonna be honest, some of the text messages were like, "Hey, here's what happens in the church a lot of times." And here's the thing: I want to say this right now. We're Central States Conference. We're having this conversation, but we can't take on the indictments of what has happened in the church for all of eternity. We can't do that, right? We're trying to have this space right now where we are, and to say, "Hey, listen." Today's the day where we're going to start changing things as it relates to how we deal with these things. But I want to come to Brother Graham, and then I want to come back to Sister Kelly on this one. A question came in. Can you explain what happens in the brain for the individual? Because Elder Bernard said, hey, if you're dealing with something, come and talk about it. Go to your pastor, even go to the elders, go to someone you trust, even if they're not necessarily in an elected position. Go and talk to those individuals. But the individual sent in and asked, can you explain what happens in the brain of the individual that makes it difficult for them to talk about the abuse that has happened, at least right away? For some people, they can't talk about it until 5-10 years down the line. So what is it that's happening and how is their brain processing that situation? Can you just break that down a little bit from a therapist point of view?
I'm going to even break it down even as simple as possible, Dr. Keith. It's all about abuse comes with power, bottom line. So when somebody is abused, they're in a situation, let's say, for instance, if they tell on the abuser, they have no place to go. They get kicked out of the house. They have no place to eat. They become homeless. So they are stuck in there. Or the second thing is, you don't have to hold a role in church, which was spoken about. You don't have to be a board member. You don't have to be a pastor, but you just are seen as a powerful person. The Seventh-day Adventist Church, especially the Black Seventh-day Adventist Church, everybody knows somebody. Mm-hmm. Everybody went to school with somebody. And if I didn't go to school with somebody, I just got a text right now that just told me that they know you. My cousin's godbrother is Dr. Keith, the host of the program. Somebody texted me and telling me this. So if I was an abuser, it will be hard for that person that I could tell them, don't say anything. They want to say something. And the first thing we can do, or sorry, I shouldn't say we, the abuser does, is to make sure they say, I know this person, you will not eat tomorrow, because there are people who has food insecurities. They do not have a job. They are taken care of. And so the first thing in the brain is that they cannot go up against this person of power, whether it's little power or whether it's big power. The power is manifested in that person's brain that they cannot move on, and they carry it forever.
Yeah. Can you add to that? Just from a prevention, dealing with parents, how do you deal with?
I am still here. Can you see me?
Yeah, I see you now. I see you. How do we deal? What's the process for in the mind of, let's say, the child who's experiencing abuse?
So each child is going to process trauma differently. And so some children are going to be, some children are known to be very vocal about it. They want to talk about it. Other children are, it's shame. Shame is what is the driving factor. A lot of children don't know how to process what has happened to them. Depending on the age of the child, they're not able to even process if they have been sexually assaulted, what has happened to their body. You'll hear so many children say that they thought it was normal. They thought that it was happening to everybody because they didn't know anything differently. That's part of the process of parents educating their children. Like you were saying earlier, Pastor, about what is healthy touch and unhealthy touch. That's part of that whole education process, because so many young people don't even know how to process what happened to them. Was it wrong that happened to me? And a lot of times they're not able to verbalize it until much later on in life. I want to also speak just real quickly to the fact, once again, it's shame. It's shame driven. The reason why we don't want people to know what's going on inside of our homes, we say what's going on here, what stays here, is because we don't want people to know our dysfunction. We don't want people to know what's going on inside of our homes. And so we have to learn to make church a safe place where people are able to come and say, hey, I need help. And we have to break down those barriers. We're so busy trying to put on pretenses that everything is okay inside of our homes, and it's not. We have to be willing to come forward together as a community. That's why I want to urge everyone, especially that young woman that was on earlier, please go back and listen to the keynote address from last night from Dr. Johnson. If we could have had these conversations 10, 20 years ago, where would we be today as a church? But we're starting now. We're taking accountability. We're making positive steps to move forward. And I can't help but believe that we're going to take huge strides in healing and also preventing so much of this abuse from happening in the future.
Yeah, no, that's powerful, Pastor. That's powerful. Thank you so much, Doctor, for that. Because a lot of people, I've had conversations recently with individuals who've suffered some kind of abuse in their early years. And they say, listen, we feel ashamed. We feel like maybe, was it my fault? Was it something that I did? People freeze. You have all kinds of things that people experience and that they go through. And they feel guilty and dirty. And those are the kind of words that I've heard people use. And so we can't, because they don't say anything about it immediately, because they can't get it out, doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It doesn't mean that they're wrong in any way. But, especially the younger you are, trying to process what you just went through.
Yeah.
What is this? Is this really what love is? Because they say they love me, and this is maybe an authority figure that said they love me. But so there's a whole lot that goes on, and people react to things that happen to them differently.
Yes.
Listen, I do not mean to monopolize this, but I have to say this. The reason why our children do not come to us and give us this information is because they're afraid of getting a whooping. They're afraid of getting a spanking. They're afraid that, you're going to call me fast, that you're going to call me a little slut. We have got research shows that parents are the single most important influence on a children's life as to whether they use substances or whether they're involved in risky behaviors. We have got to bring bonding into our family, change the way that we're disciplining our children in order to open up those bonds where our children are willing to come and have those conversations with us. Daddy, somebody touched me, without them being afraid of being in trouble.
Yeah, no, that's real, and I wanna go somewhere with this because thank you all for your comments.
Pastor, I'm sorry. Can I just but one more second, because I guess you see that I'm kind of passionate about this as well.
I got you. Well, let me ask this question real quick, Elder Bernard. Don't forget what you're gonna say, because this may tie into what you're about to say. How do these abuses affect the ministry that we do in the church? So I want to tie that into this piece of what Ms. Kelly just said, and even what Elder Bernard is about to respond. Go ahead, Elder Bernard.
Yeah, so I want to have you ask that question again, because I want to make sure I process it properly. But I was just thinking about, people freeze. It's literally a neurobiological response to some kind of trauma that happens to an individual. Many people say, why did that deer stand there and they saw the headlights coming and they did nothing? They froze. I mean, it's is that really what happened to me? Am I about to get hit by this car? And people, they have these ways of dealing with the traumas that they experience. One way that people deal with trauma is it's called the fight or flight. Either I'm gonna run or I'm gonna stand and fight. Well, freezing is also a way that people deal with things that happen to them. So, if they don't speak about it immediately, it doesn't mean that it's not something that traumatized them or something that they didn't go through. Now you asked the question, Pastor. I want to make sure I answer that as well.
Yeah, and it's building off what you were just saying. So how does the abuses that happen in the church and the ways that we respond to them, I think it's important for everyone on the line, especially if you're connected to a church, to understand this. How do those things affect the ministry that takes place at the local church?
Yeah, I think it was Dr. Kelly that said it. Either we're going to be a real place where some real healing can take place, or we're going to continue to be a place where people come with their mask on and pretend like everything is good and everything is fine. We have to have a safe place for people to say that they are hurting. We have to have a safe place where judgment is not going to be passed on individuals, even if individuals get themselves into some situations. If we're going to really do real ministry, we got to let people be able to come to the church, which is supposed to be, we hear it all the time, the hospital where those who are sick can get healthy. Well, then we really got to treat the church that way. So if people come in and they're suffering abuse of some sort, we deal with it, we report it, and so on and so forth. But I think a question that was asked is, what next? What's going to happen after that? What is the church going to do after that? You've reported it. It's being investigated. Well, I think that it's important for us to also stick with that individual, make sure there's some follow through, make sure that we're connecting them with some therapists who they could talk with. Because one of the things we as pastors are learning to do now, which wasn't done earlier on, was we learn how to stay in our lane. We tried to be counselors for everything, and we did more damage than we did good. So we're learning how to refer people to good Christian counselors, people who could deal, who have specialty in these areas. And I think we stick with our people like that. We're making sure that they're getting the help that they need. We're holding them accountable for making sure that they're getting their counseling, that they are staying out of situations that will get them, that could possibly get them caught up into something they don't want to be in. I think we stick with our members, we love on our members, and that they know that the church is a safe place for them to come and say, hey, I had a relationship that I wasn't expecting to have, and know that their first response is not going to be, well, we're going to have to censor you or disfellowship you.
Yeah. I want to go to some other individuals. Come on, chime into this. We're talking about ministry. How is ministry affected? Thank you, Elder Bernard. How is ministry affected by these abuses that take place?
Well, Doc, one of the things I want to press in this conversation, and I'm going to bring a sports analogy. The church needs to have a championship locker room. So there are people in Pathfinders, there are people in Sabbath school that, and you hear after the fact, they use the word, and I'm gonna use my name as an example. Well, Brother Graham is a creepy guy. Brother Graham, I don't like the way he, touches or hugs people in church. Brother Graham has friends in that church and in that community that nobody has ever checked. So, you play basketball and you miss a free throw, Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan is going to pull you to the side. It's like, yo, Graham, get your shot together. Mm-hmm. Same thing that goes on in the church. I say, Brother Graham, I know you're a real great guy. What I'm hearing is, and people thinks that you're creepy. And then sometimes because of this person's status or how much they give to the church, or because they show up at a prayer meeting before Sabbath school on Sabbath and they do the whole gamut, or they help with the agape on Saturday afternoon and they're down there Wednesday night, his status goes up and he gets to still play his creep personality and nobody talks to him. Maybe the pastor speaks to him, okay? And I'm gonna tell you, I'm one of us. I know how to speak to pastors. So Pastor Bernard will come to me and say, hey, Graham, I've been hearing this about you. I say, hey, Doc, you know how we talk to each other? That's all a rumor, all right? But it's somebody who I love, like my brother-in-law, or somebody who I talk to and say, hey, G, not Doc, hey, G, there's something going around in church about you and you need to address it. I said, no, I'm not like that. So we have to talk to each other and we have to check each other in our community. Forget authority figures. What am I going to say to my brother?
Yeah.
What I'm going to say to my college roommate? What I'm going to say to the next person who I have great discussions in Sabbath school with? That's where we need to change the culture on the membership level.
That's good. That's good. Pastor Rogers.
Yeah, from a ministry standpoint, I think it's really, really vital for us to understand the millennial and Gen Z values that they hold. When I say that, I'm meaning this generation, millennials are, basically between 25 to 35, somewhere in there. And then below that, we have Gen Z, right, which is like our teenagers right now. And those are the young people we're trying to effectively reach. Well, what we've got to understand is that they have a general distrust of organizations. Whereas previous generations thought that if it's an organized entity, if this entity has been around for 50, 100, 200 years, the longer the entity has been around, the more trust I should have in this group. Understand that in millennials' mindset and Gen Z's mindset, it works the exact opposite. The longer the organization has been around, the more distrust the generation has, because their thinking is, if you've been around this long, you must have done some something shady. You must have a lot of
Got bones hidden in the
bones
closet.
hidden. Yeah, exactly. In order to have stayed around this long. And so understand that when they come to the church, they have a distrust of the organization already. And so when we have these situations of abuse that happen within the church, it erodes at what was already an eroding foundation of trust between us and our young people. And so it's critically important for us to make sure, like it's already been said, that we create safe places, that they equate church with trust, with safety, with security, with protection, with accountability, with all of those different elements. Otherwise, what the ultimate impact it has ministry wise is that we lose our young people. And that's where my heart and my passion is. I don't want to see any more of our young people walking through the doors saying, I knew the church is this way. They only look out for themselves. They don't care about protecting anybody. They only care about the money, right? These are the types of things that are said when these instances happen. And we see the ramifications, especially on social media. I mean, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I'm saying, let me say this last piece, and then I know somebody else wants to speak as well. This generation doesn't take a vote with their hands. They take a vote with their feet. Like they rather than trying to say, let me try to change everything and fix everything and fight through all of this mess that's happening, they will just say, I'm going to remove myself because I don't want to be disingenuous and just be in a farce and put on a mask. I will just remove myself and find another place that seems to be safer than this. And so we've got to be very, very intentional about how we handle this.
Gotcha. Sister Kelly, what you got?
Just a quick point, and I think maybe Dr. Graham or Dr. Johnson may want to chime in on this just real quickly, but again, research shows that a child will stay stuck psychologically at the first age that they received or experienced trauma. So unless they have resources and a place in order to work through those traumas, did you wrap your mind around it? They stay stuck. The very first age that they receive trauma, there are parts of their brain that will stay stuck there unless they work through it. And yes, Dr. Johnson and Dr. Graham may want to chime in on that. But what responsibility does the church have in that process? I think it is to point them to resources, to continue to have these conversations and to have these platforms so that people can realize, hey, I do need to get help. I don't want to be stagnant. I do want to move forward.
Yeah, that's good. Dr. Johnson or Brother Graham, you got anything you want to add to that piece before we move to the next question?
That is definitely true. A lot of times when we're looking at adults, we've been having a lot of conversation about children, but we find that there are adults who get molested, become victims. And a lot of times, if you trace back to their history, they became vulnerable as a child because of something that happened in their childhood. And it made them to be right prey because they're stuck still emotional in the way they deal with things that at maybe 5 or 6 or 7 when they were first sexually victimized. And so it's so important that we don't just focus on our children. We also need to focus in on the fact that we have adults that also are having problems that need to be that because they were stuck as a child with something. So it's so important that we start at childhood, but since we're playing catch up, we also have to make sure that we keep our adults safe also, because we hear about the situations where there was a young adult or even an older adult who fell victim to someone that they were used to putting a trust in. So we need to make sure that we are safe for our children, but we also need to be safe and pointing our adults, our young adults to help, that we need to make sure that mental health therapy, and we have to be careful from the pulpits, because sometimes, we've heard the sermons that said, oh, you don't need to go to a shrink, you just need to go to Jesus. You all need to pray about this. And yes, prayer is important. We must pray, but we have to pray and work.
Yeah. No, that's real. It's so, and it's important for us to understand. We can say it today, y'all. It's important for us to remember the church is a hospital. Like we gotta get beyond, and I know I'm not a panelist, but I'm take my opportunity before I ask my next question. We gotta get beyond this idea that everybody's fine when we come to church. Like the reality is, and I've even challenged some of my members to say, why don't we make those areas in which we've been hurt areas where we do effective ministry? Because here's the reality. There are others that are going through the very same thing that you went through, or maybe that are going to go through. And if we have those effective ministries that allow us to talk about real real issues, then maybe we can kind of cut some of this off. But here's what one member said, and I received this. I understand this. They said, we gotta feel like the individuals that are in the room that we're going to have this conversation with are not going to judge us because of what we went through. Like if sister such and such, who's been in the church for a long time, finally comes out and says, hey, you know, when I was 12 years old, now she's 60 years old now. When I was 12 years old, I was raped by a deacon in the church. How are the members going to respond? Is she always from that day forward going to be looked at as sister such and such that got raped? Is that now? Are we going to put some scarlet, or are we going to surround her and give her opportunity to share some of the things that she's been carrying for these last 48 years as a result of not feeling safe sharing that with anyone that's in the house? It's serious, y'all. We're in a space where we can no longer act like everything's okay, act like nothing has happened to us. We need to allow for these real conversations to take place so that we can get the healing that we need. I'm gonna move to this next question. For Christians, the goal should be redemption for all parties involved, right? There should be redemption as the focus. What does that look like in the days following abuse? So I want to hear from our doctors, our therapists, even Elder Bernard as the president. What does redemption look like in the days following abuse for all individuals, not just the victim, but even the one who, the predator, the one who did the act, and the family, the larger family? What does that look like? What are some steps that we can implement to allow for redemption to take place for all individuals?
That's a heavy question, and I'll start off talking about the offender. Redemption looks like accountability. There must be accountability. If there's no accountability for the offense, then you can't ever get to redemption. That's required by God. You know, you got to acknowledge that you have an issue. You take the consequence. David, when he got Uriah, but had Uriah murdered, he was redeemed. The Bible later identifies him as a man after God's own heart. Mm-hmm. But there was some serious consequences that he could not escape. All right. And so there can be redemption. God, there is nothing that God can't forgive. He tells us no sin, no kind of blasphemy that I can't forgive. You could talk about me and I could forgive that. You just can't turn off the Holy Spirit's voice. So he can forgive, but that does not negate the fact that there are going to be some consequences that come along with that action. That may look like you having somebody follow you around the church because you can't walk freely there anymore because you have a title now that you've been an abuser. That may mean you have to do some jail time. So in order for that redemption to come for that individual, there has to be some accountability for the action. You have to deal with the consequences. And I'll pause there before somebody else come on.
There also has to be intervention, because we have to realize that it's not normal for someone to abuse. That's not a normal behavior. There's something that they need some help with too. Yes, we need. There's consequences, but that consequence has to be not only punitive, but it also needs to help that person. Because why are they abusing people? Are they feeling insecure? Were they abused in their past? That's not to excuse, but they need to get the help too, because we have to remember that sexual predatism isn't really about sex. It's about power and control. So where in their life have they felt out of control that they now have to mandate control on someone else? Gotcha.
Anybody else? We talk about all parties involved. Go ahead, Brother Graham. What you got?
No, I'm just agreeing with, there's two words in this panel discussion that came out. The word shame by the sister Kelly talked about, and power. And anytime you have an abuser, the person that's being abused deals with the shame. The person that is oppressing the abuser has to do with power. And that's all. I'm just agreeing with that. This is something. It's sometimes when we do therapy, some things you don't see in a book, and some things you don't. This is book knowledge matched with experience. So always remember, this audience, the person that is being oppressed deals with shame. The oppressor deals with power.
Gotcha. Anybody else?
Yeah, and I'll just say also, Pastor, that I'm now at a point in my ministry where I don't tell people what they need. I try to facilitate what they feel they need to get past some of the traumas and the things that have occurred in their lives. So, I can always suggest, okay, here's a good Christian therapist. It may be a good idea for you to talk to someone, but they may also feel like they need something else that we might be able as a church to provide, tightening our system for making sure we're keeping a thorough watch on people. So I talk to folk as well. What do you need? What do you need from the church to help you through this time as well?
That's good. So we heard intervention.
Well, I'd like to just
go ahead, Sister Kelly.
Well, when we're talking about from the standpoint of the victim, no, they can't go to church together. They cannot go to church together. No, they may not even be able to stay in the same conference. It has to be about, first of all, confidentiality, especially depending on the age of the victim. We need to make sure that information is never released. No one should ever know. It should not ever be leaked. It can be really detrimental depending on the age of the child, that other people know, their peers, other families. So we need to have steps in place to ensure that confidentiality is at the utmost priority in these situations. And then, yes, so the perpetrator may have to go to another conference. They may have to go to another state. I don't know what that looks like, but they should not be permitted back. We know how things go on conference-wide, how there are events. We don't want to have a place where the victim should have to run into their perpetrator, at least not condoned by the conference. And then just ensuring that all parties involved, parents, the leaders who took places, that they keep confidentiality. And I don't care if they have to sign an agreement to say they will not talk about this with anyone else, not their spouses, not anyone, if they are party to this information, which is very private information.
Gotcha. Now, Sister Kelly, and I hear you. So, and here's the reality: like every situation is different. Not all situations are the same. And what if? And I'm just asking, like, what if I can't move? What if I'm in? So my last church was in Des Moines, Iowa, right? What if I'm not in a space where there's another church around? What if I don't have the funds to leave? What if, as the victim, I feel just as much attached to this church as the offender? Like, how do we? What are some steps when? And I understand every instance isn't going to be the same. There's no one size fits all. There's no one magic pill that resolves this situation for everybody. There's a process. I was just looking for what are some steps that we can definitely implement to say, all right, this has happened. Brother such and such is the offender, or let's flip it. Sister such and such is the offender. And this individual over here is the victim. How do we, as a family, a church family, right? How do we get beyond this point to the point where we may not necessarily, they may not be holding hands and singing Kumbaya and all of that stuff, but we all have the same goal in mind, hopefully, and that's to be in heaven for eternity, right? And being in heaven for eternity might mean that because of the miraculous work of the Holy Spirit, brother or sister such and such is in heaven with me, right? It's possible. It is possible that work takes place in the heart. But how do we properly move forward towards a destination of wholeness for all? Yeah, go ahead.
Guess who gets to decide that? It's going to be the victim. When that happens, and I hate using that term victim, but they are the ones that are truly going through the struggle. They're the one that did not ask for this situation. They're the one that has been victimized. Now, of course, we know that there needs to be protocols for the church on how these situations, from the conference on down, the churches really shouldn't even have to make the decision. Should be protocols already in place, which I'm sure they are, that this is what happens when this takes place. But the victim is the one who gets to decide. If they decide to have that kumbaya moment where they have decided that, look, I'm going to forgive, I'm going to restore, I'm able to move past that. And guess what? There are victims that are able to do that. They're able to look their offender in the eye and say, I forgive you. Because you're right, redemption is what we want for everyone. But guess what? My mind isn't there when I'm first going through this. That's not where my mind is at. That comes much further down the road, down the line, when I've had a chance to process this. But yes, that is definitely the goal. That is the goal. But it doesn't happen right away.
So let me just take a different approach. It's in the culture. I'm looking up at live and I see the amount of people on this line right now. I could guarantee you between the 6 of us on this grid, we know everybody on this that's beside that number. I'm not going to reveal the number that's in that corner. Even if I move from New York City to St. Louis, right? There's somebody I know, and I'm harping on this. I had a conversation with my brother the other day. All Black Adventists, the one place all Black Adventists goes to, all, whether you want or not, will be at Oakwood Alumni next year when it opens up. Okay, feel me when I say this. Okay, feel me when I say this. And let's say, for instance, I had a run-in with somebody at Greater New York Academy in 1986. That's when I graduated. I'm not afraid of my age. Okay. And that person is African American, Black or brown. All right. There's a good chance, if I haven't seen them in 30 years, that I will see them down there and they will remember what I did to them. I've been doing therapy for 20 years and I've been in my private practice for 3 years. I've learned more in the last 3 years than in a hospital setting in the last 20 years. And you know, it's the one thing I learned: confidentiality starts from the beginning. So here it is. I may not say that Keith has a problem, but then I'll preach about his problem without saying his name.
Gotcha.
Okay? No, I'm dead serious. And all right. And that came to me 6 weeks ago. The person came to me, Brother Graham, I know you know everybody, but I don't need you to be preaching about my problem. I was shocked. So therefore, there needs to be a trust factor. So whether you move, and we know the whole thing, if somebody of authority did something bad at the big Ephesus church, I'll just move to Mount Rubidoux to California. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows this. Or I'll move to Washington State. Okay? Or I move to Central States Conference. Or I move to Columbus. Or I teach at Pine Forge. You get my drift. And I could do a whole lifetime of this, and people could say, you know, that's Graham's brother. He did this in 1986, and I still will be respected. I will look at my victim and still be respected, and she will feel shame. In fact, my victim's kids will be intimidated by me because of my name. I know that. So the question is, after today, because the church has done a great job with COVID when it comes to mental health. After today, I got a text the other day and said, we're still talking about this? We just did this last week. I said, praise God, because 10 years ago, we were not talking about this.
Yeah, that's right.
You understand? Right. So after we do all the confidentiality, after we go through all the legal stuff, because we're afraid to be legal, what are you going to do about me, the predator that knows all of the system? We need to get that in-house mentality and start checking people.
It's true.
Yeah, Pastor. Let me also chime in. I think that again, what Dr. Kelly stated is spot on. You know, when you are the offender, you kind of give up some of your abilities, and the person who has been abused, they get to make those decisions. And here's the thing that I wanted to point out that I think that she didn't point out. As a church, because we've been talking about it, what do we do as a church? As a church, we need not pick sides, because you're going to have people who are the friends of the person accused, and you're going to have people who are the friends and allies of the person that's been accused, that's the person who's been abused. And what you normally have is a church that splits right down the middle. Oh, they're not doing it. Oh, this person's not telling the truth. Oh, yeah, this person's telling the truth. I can't believe this person. So the church has to come together in a way that states we want to help both parties. We're not judge and jury, but we're not going to take your side because you are my friend, my long-term friend. And neither are we going to listen. We're going to handle this thing as Christians who love Christ, who want truth and help for all parties involved.
Gotcha. I do want to. We got probably about 15 more minutes. This has been a great discussion. Here's the reality. We could talk about this for all night, and we're not going to resolve every particular situation. And so we want to say this: tomorrow there will be some breakout sessions that you can take part in. You need to register for that. We're asking you also if this has triggered anything for you. If you've gone through something in the past, maybe you've been holding on to that thing and this has triggered just some feelings and emotion. You just need to talk to somebody. The number is on the screen. I want to give you an opportunity to ask if you have. We're going to take a couple more questions. My number, 513-238-6257. You can text in any questions that you have. I want to get a couple more from you all, the audience. And we're going to go to a couple more questions and then we'll close out for tonight. So we've talked about the rise in us feeling comfortable in talking about not just mental issues, but now we're talking about, these emotional things as a result of abuse. Regardless of your age, you could have been affected by this thing. And I got a question. I just want to hear from you all. We put money towards, so many different ministries. We got community services. We got men's ministry, women's ministry. Would it make sense for us as a church to allocate monies directly to assisting our members with getting assistance for mental health? And the reason why I'm asking that is because the cost associated. I reached out to one therapist, and I think they said it was like $100 per visit. And I'm thinking, all right, I got children in academy. I got bills that need to be paid. $100 per visit, and they're saying that they may want to meet with me once a week. That's $400 a month. And you have individual situations where $400 a month is considered astronomical. Would it be good for us to put monies aside to assist our members with getting these supports that they need? Or are there other things that we don't know about or haven't tapped into to be able to afford us the ability to go and sit down and talk to some professionals?
Well, yes, 100% agree.
Yeah.
Yes, there should be. I was 10 years old, and I was a member in Central State Conference. And please do not misunderstand me. I love my church and love my church family that I was attending at that time. But I was 10 years old when my father completed suicide. And I remember walking in the foyer the week after the funeral, and people were whispering. And I just felt really odd. Now, people loved me. Never was a time I didn't feel loved by my church, but they simply didn't have the skills to know how to deal with that. So why not have counseling services? Why don't we have an on-staff counselor inside the church to help members deal with mental health issues? I'm a peer counselor. I've gone through special training to peer alongside parents. You asked a question earlier, what is it going to take for people to be willing to talk about these things? They need to talk about it with people who have been through it. People that have gone through substance abuse need peer counselors in substance abuse. People that have gone through sexual assault need people that have gone through sexual assault. This is not to take away from therapies that are needed by counselors. This is in addition to, this is alongside with. If you look up peer counseling, it is a rising field, and that's the reason why. People need to know that they can recover. And the best indicator of that is somebody who's already done it. So again, I want to ask the church, the conference, to look into peer counselors looking to have on staff mental health counselors inside of the church, at least the conferences.
Anybody else on that topic of putting money aside? Or other options?
The great Joe Biden has put money aside for mental health. Your state has put money aside for the mental health. So it's time for our regional conferences and our NAD to put money aside for the mental health. Let me share something with you. The best mistake I made was going into private practice, because my phone does not stop ringing. Okay. And we have great doctors. We got great children's doctors, but we have great therapists and great social workers in this conference. And here at Ephesus, we are trying and we are starting to build a counseling center. It is there. There is free money. There is numbers that you can call that you can get free help, mental health. Can you hear me, Keith?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, so with all of that says, I could guarantee you, and one of the things that I use as one of the things I like to use, I remember as a young boy when I was at Bethel Seventh-day Adventist Church, on the last page or the second to the last page, you will see nurses on duty. And this is what Sister Kelly was talking about. And my mom was a nurse, and I used to wait every Sabbath to see her name as nurses on duty. And I found out who were the nurses on duty every Sabbath. Wouldn't it be great to say counselor on duty, Gary Graham, or Brother Kelly, or what have you? So we need to shift towards that. There are numbers, there are resources, and there are ways to navigate where we don't have to come out of our pocket. You don't have to pay $100 a week. You don't have to pay $100 a month. Let me just share this for you, right? Netflix. If you work for Netflix, you get 99. You heard me? 99 sessions for free. Okay? If you work for Peacock, you get 10 free sessions. If you work for Best Buy, you get 3 free sessions. Okay? And they pay me. So there are people in our church who work for nursing. In New York City, if you work for $11.99, no copay. If you work for Aetna, or if you would Cigna, if those names sound familiar to you, they have waived the copay for COVID. So if it is out there, and hopefully in my session tomorrow, I will speak on that, and I'll be more than happy to speak on that, where you don't have to come out of pocket and you can still pay your school fee for Adventist Academy. Praise God.
Yeah, and I see one of the panelists, and I'll speak to this question. And I'm not saying that the church foots the bill for all of the sessions. There needs to be, because here's the thing, it's just a reality. Sometimes when there's not that investment in getting our help, we're not as likely to follow through on all the steps. I wasn't saying that we just put a fund together and we just fund all mental health. I was saying that maybe a session, you know what I'm saying? If this is the first session, maybe the church will cover, and then we will support from a distance and just make sure you're going while you're working through the financial abilities. I'm just really saying other ways that we could get past the stigma. One, the stigma that it's bad to talk to somebody, and then two, the hurdle of cost being a thing that prevents us from getting the help that we need. Did anybody else want to talk to that piece?
I did.
Okay.
I think Brother Graham also mentioned that there's some resources. Many of our individuals can get, if they're employed, they can get things from their employee assistance program. Many you'd be surprised which companies, if they have that's part of what they have to do to meet some of the state requirements. So you need to go to your HR person and find out if you have employee assistance program so that you can get that. As an aside, I don't know if this scroll has come through, but one of the things that we've been asking for our listeners is to put in $5, to put in $10 to our Cash App or through the conference Adventist Giving, because the proceeds that we get from this weekend, we are going to develop a fund to be able to assist, not pay for, but be able to assist with getting mental health counseling. And I think that's great that we get counselors together. What I'm told, however, by some of our members is that I'm not giving can talk to Sister So-and-so at the church. I know she's a licensed therapist, but she gonna tell my business.
Yep.
Not knowing that if she does, you can be rich. Because if she violated your confidentiality, you can sue her.
True.
So no therapist is going to do that. I asked one of my therapists that I actually sent a patient to. I said, I heard one of my patients did reach out to you, and she said the appropriate thing. I don't know if they did or they didn't, because reality of it was that they didn't sign a confidentiality release that she could say it, and definitely not while we were having a Zoom a restream conversation. So, but the other thing is, for all of those who are on today, if you register for tomorrow, I have compiled a list of both Christian therapists, members of our churches, who have said that they would be willing to see members, because sometimes therapists don't want to see members either. Because they might. But I've also made a list of places that have sliding fee scales, and some of them are actually free resources. So those individuals who are listening right now, if you think that you need, or you know somebody who does need mental health counseling, make sure you register, because we're going to be sending an email out to everyone who registers of counselors who will be able to see you. They aren't there. I tried to find people who were Christian counselors. By the way, their ads came through, but I want you to know, but the biggest thing I looked for was sliding fee scales and free scales. And yes, there is COVID money out there, because we know that during COVID, a lot of the mental health issues that we've had have come to the forefront, and there is federal money to supply that. So please plan to register so that you can get that information.
Gotcha.
Please, let me just add this and reiterate this. Dr. Johnson said this, right? I'm just going to be very personal. It's good. I don't want to lose my money. Okay? I'm being real for you. One of the reasons I get a chance to go around the country is because I could talk freely. Okay? Remember, I told you, I don't even speak about people, confidentiality. We have to take out $5 million of insurance, and I don't want to go through it. I'll even go even further than that. I've been accused of something that I did not do. And the professionals on this line, you know what you have to go through, even if you win. And I won the case. And I still have to jump through hurdles to get on panels in order to be cleared. There's such a big confidentiality thing. Look, brothers and sisters, you don't have to see Brother Graham, but see somebody else of color. They do not want to break your confidentiality. That's the last thing they want to do. What they really want to do is stop you from hurting. And just because I'm a person of color doesn't mean I am the right person either. If you don't like your doctor, you're going to switch your doctor. If you don't like your car, you don't switch your car. There is so much money out there for mental health. And you know who uses it? Our cousins.
Yeah.
Our cousins use it because they even come to me. So I'll talk about this tomorrow. Register tomorrow. I'm sure Sister Johnson and Dr. Bernard and people in this panel will reiterate. Don't even give it a try, because once you try, you'll be like, oh man, I've been missing this a lot. So please call somebody. There are free numbers. Psychology Today, use her numbers. Call your pastor. Your pastor is not a therapist. Your pastor is a referrer. Yeah. Okay. He will refer you to the right person. He'll give us to say, hey, so-and-so have an issue. We'll take care of it. I'm pleading with you. I'm begging with you. You don't have to see Dr. Graham. You don't have to see Dr. Johnson. You don't have to see Sister Kelly, but you got to see somebody, people.
There we go. Well, I want to close up with this. I want to give each of you a couple of seconds, and I thank you all for being on the panel. I thank you all for attending. I'm asking you all to continue, those who are watching, continue this conversation. This is not the end of it. Tomorrow we're going to have a conversation, but even after tomorrow, you're going to have to have some other conversations. If you're dealing with some stuff, seek some help. Some individuals that you can trust to confide in. Don't keep carrying that weight. Listen, a lot of us are experiencing sickness right now, and it's not so much because of what's going on around us. It's because of what's going on inside of us. And today we were just hoping that we can have a conversation that will lead to us resolving some of those issues that we've been carrying for a long time. I want to ask our panelists, and I'm going to ask Dr. Johnson to go first, so that then she could be last as well. I'm gonna ask our panelists to just give us some closing thoughts as it relates to this topic. I want to thank the visitors, the viewers who sent in text messages. But if we can just get you all to give maybe 1 or 2 minutes, just closing thoughts, then we'll end with Dr. Johnson closing out the program for today.
I think it's really important that we realize that mental health is just as important as physical health. What I tell my parents, and whether I'm talking about their child or whether I'm talking about themselves, for some reason we think that anything from here down is okay. If I have a headache, if I have a nosebleed, if I have high blood pressure or diabetes, that's a valid illness. But why would we think that anything from here up is wrong? Because our brain is the powerhouse of our bodies. And if it's not functioning well because we got stuck in some trauma that happened earlier in our lives, we are traumatized right now, we're depressed, we are upset, many times because of something that happened to us that we have not held, because God made our bodies special. And we can only contain so much. Just like the reason you have a headache is because the reason you feel pain is because something is wrong. The reason that you're depressed, down, anxious, acting out, sometimes having ADHD is because there is something that needs to be fixed. So please, 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 just like hopefully you go to the pediatrician, to the internist, to the family medicine physician, go to a therapist, go to a counselor. You don't need a psychiatrist necessarily, because psychiatrists don't have the time to talk. Basically, psychiatrists usually give medication. You need a therapist, you need a licensed professional counselor, you need a therapist, you need an MA, you need somebody who's going to talk, listen, and the therapist can't fix you. Don't think that. But what the therapist can do is just like our bodies were made to heal, our brains are made to heal. They can put you in the right direction so that you can grasp how you're feeling. So please, all of you who are listening, my challenge to you is, if you are hurting, please get some help. If your child is hurting, please get some help. Make sure you sign in for tomorrow, because you're going to get something free tomorrow that would probably cost you at least $100, Brother Keith said.
That's right.
Yes, I want to thank our guests who joined us today. And I know that tomorrow is going to be a rich lesson. Listen, I want to say to you, as your president of the conference, that abuse is not acceptable in any form. And we will work here in Central States Conference to ensure that we have safe environments for our people to be in and to be able to grow healthily. God bless you as you continue to go through this Sabbath.
I just want to say thank you to everybody, and to Pastor Bernard. I have to let you know I do not have my doctorate yet, but I'm going to take that as a prophetic word. So I thank you for that. I think the main thing I want to leave with people is that recovery is possible. That one of my colleagues, Peggy Needleham, I want to just mention her, because she sent me a phrase at one time that just simply said, live through it. Live through it. Continue to put one foot in front of the other. Continue to seek the resources. Continue to talk. Continue to be willing to be vulnerable and transparent until you get your needs met. And that is difficult. And that you just have a commitment that you know that you have people around you to support you. And I know the church is doing a great job in trying to step up and be that support. I also want to just give a quick shout out and thank Dr. Johnson so much, Debbie Jackson, for believing in me. I'm passionate about parent workshops. You guys tune in tomorrow morning. You'll find out more about that. I want to thank my family, the Whitford family and the Kalispel tribe. I live on the Kalispel reservation. I'm so very grateful for that opportunity. I also have to let you know that no opinions expressed here represent my agency. I work for a wonderful agency, Pend Oreille County Counseling Services, the only Medicaid-funded mental health agency in the county. A lot of hardworking individuals, as you can well imagine. And then just to give glory and honor to God, I can't even begin to express how grateful I am to have this opportunity to be a part of this. We're definitely agents for change. So very grateful. Thank you so much.
I'm just going to start by saying how grateful I am to be on this panel. I watch political news all the time, and I just get excited when they say, "Oh, I'm about to talk to so and so," or what have you. So this is just up there with CNN and MSNBC. Let me first give a big thank you to Dr. Johnson. I don't know where you found me, but I'm glad that you found me. I'm very, very happy. Pastor Bernard, I've been trolling you for years, and I've been following your ministry. And for me to be on the same panel and the same grid as you, it's exciting. And I hope this is not the last time we get together. Four things I want to let everybody know. They talk about guarding the avenues of your souls. Look out for those video games with your kids. Play those video games with your kids and listen who they're talking to on the other side of that. And it's the same thing with their telephone and their social media. You pay that bill, you look what's going on, and you find out where they're getting all of this crazy stuff for. And I said it because it's there. A half of your answers is right there in their phone and in their social media. See, talk about it. Always talk about it. If you go to your pastor and they will refer you to somebody, and most of all, it is affordable. It is affordable. You'll be surprised how affordable it is to talk about what's going on from the head up. I look forward to speaking to you tomorrow. And once again, register. It's not only me, all of us put together. Once again, thank you for this opportunity.
In closing, I'll just say, to second what everybody else has said, and a major thank you to Dr. Johnson for putting this together, to all the panelists for sharing. This has been informative for me. And I just want to leave everybody with this thought. We have to remember that sexual predation, anything in this realm, it is a result of sin. And ultimately, we do the very best that we can as pastors, those who are therapists, those who are working the very best that they can. Ultimately, we have to remember that it is Jesus Christ who provides the healing. And there may be somebody today who feels like God doesn't care, God wasn't there for me. I can't give you all of the answers that you may be looking for, but I promise you that there is a God who loves you, who cares about you, who will give you those answers in due season. And so I encourage you to keep trusting in God, keep connecting to God, and we're here to be a support to you as well.
My husband and I are so privileged to be able to serve as your family ministries directors. I want to thank each one of you. Brother Graham, thank you so much. I think it was God ordained that I discovered you back in September. Thank you so much. Sister Don, thank you so much, Sister Kelly. Yes, I was so glad when Deborah Jackson gave me your name and being able to interact with you intermittently over these last few weeks. Thank you so much for your passion. Thank you so much for what you're doing. And of course, Pastor Bernard, thank you for being proactive. A lot of times we feel like church administrators don't care. They're kind of into the establishment and they're part of the old boys club or something like that. I'm glad that you are proactive rather than reactive. Pastor Karsten, you are just fantastic working with our young people. I thank you for you having a passion for our young people. I feel, even though I don't have personal young people, I think I do have a grandson who's probably now in your age group. I would trust him. I would think that you have his best interest. So he's going to sign up, even though they moved to the other part of the country, but hopefully they will sign up to be able to be part of that. And Pastor Keith, thank you so much. It's been great being doing panelists with you, having conversations with you, knowing that part of your work as working with the community has been working with making sure that we have this out on the community too. Some people in the chat have said that they wanted to know how to sign up, how to register for tomorrow. You can go to our conference website, which is www.central-states.org. It's on the screen right now. You can jot it down, take a picture of it. You know how all these millennial Gen X people do. Go in and take a picture of the screen so you have that where you can call it in. Or if you just put in central-states.org, you'll find that you can register. The registration is free. but we do have to have registration for you to attend the conferences tomorrow. We're just so glad that Pastor Bernard, that you have allowed us to have this forum, so that we can talk about this. And I'm going to encourage my family ministries leaders throughout the conference. Don't let this conversation be a one-time conversation. That we need to have programs to help make sure that our parents are learning how to talk to their children. Our teenagers are learning what is and is not okay online. Our young adults are making healthy choices. Our men are knowing how to be advocates for their family and to take care of their own healing, perhaps. And we also need to make sure that our individuals who might have been injured, or who might know people who are injured, that they are getting the healing that they know. And Pastor Rogers, thank you. You're right. We can only be the vessels through which God does his healing. But ultimately, he is the one who's going to heal us. And praise God, there's no disease, no problem, no difficulty that God cannot heal if we will just allow it. Honey, would you close us out with prayer?
I will. Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, thank you so much. Thank you for talking to us and impressing on our minds, Father, the things that you want us to know to help our people here on earth. Lord, this world is bad. It is getting worse, Lord, each day. And we thank you, Lord, for just putting your influence in our minds and in our hearts. And we can help those who really need help. And Lord, we just thank you so much for the Sabbath day. We thank you the privilege to just talk it out and just help someone, Father. That's what it's all about, to be here on this earth to talk and help other folks. Be with all the panelists today. Bless them, bless their families. And we just give you praise and we love you, Jesus. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.